Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to be an MC and the moderators for the seminar, the New South Wales Vietnam Industries Forum 2022, the future of EdTech in Vietnam, where we focus on promoting the opportunities for EdTech companies in New South Wales to expand their business to Vietnam as the destination. Through this event, we can review the EdTech industry's landscape in Vietnam over the last 5 years and exploring the growing education opportunities in Vietnam for the New South Wales EdTech. This event is co-hosted by the New South Wales Government and Australia-Vietnam Leadership Dialogue, AVLD in short. Thank you so much, the New South Wales Government, for sponsoring this event. My name is Van Nguyen. I am the founder and the CEO of Osla.io, which is an educational tech-enabled platform for supporting Asian students study overseas with academic mentors. I also was named in the Forbes 30 Under 30 Vietnam. On behalf of the organizer, I would like to extend a very warm welcome to all of you. We appreciate you taking time off your busy schedule to join us today. We hope you all can learn today. We have lined up for you to be fruitful and engaging. So to begin, we would like to please have Mr. Leighton White, AVLD Board Director, to deliver the opening remark. Mr. Leighton White, please welcome.
Thank you, Van, and thank you to all our distinguished guests joining today for this industry forum on EdTech and e-commerce between New South Wales and Vietnam. As Van said, my name is Leighton Pike. I'm the Deputy Chair and Board Director of the Australia-Vietnam Leadership Dialogue, as well as the Director of Global Strategy for RMIT University. It's my pleasure to welcome everybody here today, but first, I would like to acknowledge country. So may I, on behalf of the organisers today and all participants, acknowledge the traditional custodians and First Peoples of the lands we're meeting today, pay respects to their elders past, present and emerging, and to all traditional custodians. We welcome you here today and welcome you to this event. It's a great pleasure on behalf of the Australia-Vietnam Leadership Dialogue to join with our partner in Investment New South Wales to launch this event, which is the first in a dual series industry forums between New South Wales and Vietnam. Today's focus is on EdTech and later a focus on e-commerce. Let me say in opening that the Australia-Vietnam Leadership Dialogue is proud to have a strategic partner in the Government of New South Wales and through Invest New South Wales work on a program of events, firstly in support of our flagship dialogue, including last year's 2021 dialogue, but also stretching to broader activities as we increase the discussion and engagement both in Australia and New South Wales and into Vietnam around the two-way opportunities for trade and investment. It's a really meaningful partnership for us from the Australia-Vietnam Leadership Dialogue, and we acknowledge our friends and colleagues at Invest New South Wales and thank them for their ongoing partnership. Van is our moderator for today and she will introduce the panelists. She will run you through the proceedings for today. But let me just begin by saying that the opportunities for New South Wales industry to consider in the EdTech in Vietnam are significant with a large young population, a changing workforce and a real focus on upskilling to embrace the opportunities of a changing world. There are significant opportunities for us to consider, for us to contemplate, and what better environment to come together with these stakeholders today to talk about this and explore these together. So thank you again for joining. I hope you find today's event to be very useful and productive. And back to you, Van, to moderate the session. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Leighton, for sharing about AVLD overview, purpose, and missions. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming the Consul General of Vietnam, Dr. Nguyễn Đăng Thắng, for the opening remarks. Dr. Nguyễn Đăng Thắng, please.
Thank you, Văn Nguyen. Good afternoon to everyone from Sydney, and good morning to those in Vietnam. At the outset, I would like to thank New South Wales Investment for inviting me to this important session. I believe this session and the New South Wales Invest Industry Forum at large are excellent ideas and cannot be more timely when both countries are now rising to the challenges posed by the COVID-19 pandemic. When we are talking about cooperation in education and more generally in industry between New South Wales and Vietnam, we cannot help discussing against the bilateral relation between the two countries, Vietnam and Australia. It is sufficient for me to note and to quote from our Prime Minister observation in 2019 that Vietnam and Australia relationship has become stronger than ever. Indeed, since establishing our bilateral relations in 1973, our bilateral bonds have gone from strength to strength on a very steady pace. And in 2018, our Prime Minister officially concluded the establishment of our Vietnam-Australia strategic partnership. With that strong political bond comes the strategic growth of our economic relations. Before COVID, our bilateral trade has grown by almost 10% each year for the past 2 decades. And even during this difficult time of COVID pandemic, two-way trade turnover between Vietnam and Australia continues to increase. I'm very delighted to inform you that in 2021, the trade between the two countries grew dramatically by nearly 50% to more than 70.7 billion Australian dollars. And in terms of investment, Australia is now the 19th largest investor in Vietnam. But there remains much potential for the two countries to deepen their bilateral relations. Thus, after several years of discussion, in November last year, you may know that our Prime Ministers concluded the Vietnam-Australia Enhanced Economic Engagement Strategy. And in this strategy, the two governments listed 8 sectors in which Vietnam and Australia have particular strengths in order to build on the trade and investment relationship. This includes first, education, second, skills and training, third, resources and energy, fourth, agriculture, forestry and fisheries, fifth, manufacturing, sixth, tourism, seventh, science, technology and innovation, and finally, digital economy. You can easily notice that education is identified first on the list, and this is without reasons. Education is both strategic and long-term, which in turn strengthen people-to-people link, as well as generate more business opportunities. In fact, Australia has always been a favorite destination for Vietnamese students, with more than 20,000 coming each year, and Vietnamese students consistently rank among the top 5 of international students in Australia. And New South Wales in particular is one of the 2 most popular places for education in the opinion of the Vietnamese, with the number of students Vietnamese students here always accounting for more than 33% of the total number of Vietnamese students in Australia. And I'm also glad to know that more and more education and institutions in Australia, particularly in New South Wales, are paying more attention to Vietnamese students by opening their facilities in Vietnam. And you can see from the intervention by Professor Yi Cheng Liang of the Western Sydney University earlier in this section. Against that backdrop, I wholeheartedly welcome this timely forum, particularly this EdTech session. I wish you all good health, happiness, success, and a fruitful discussion. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nguyen Đăng Thắng, for your opening remark. Finally, I would like to invite here at the stage Mr. Kien Van Nguyen, Investment New South Wales Trades and Investment Director, Vietnam, to have few words. Mr. Kien, welcome.
Thank you very much, Van. Thank you, Dr. Thắng, for your opening remark, and thank you, Leighton, panelists, and all distinguished guest attendants. We are very happy to be the headline sponsor to AVLD 2021-2022, and the event today is part of that program. Investment New South Wales supports New South Wales businesses to export through helping them get ready, understand the market and the opportunities and how to enter the market. And today events contributes to that process. We would help them to meet the potential customers and seal commercial agreements as well. And we here at New South Wales, we also promote New South Wales products and services in such strategic markets as Vietnam. We promote New South Wales as a great destination for study, for travel, for investment, and for startup businesses. We have 6 universities in the global 100 top-ranking universities, with the most STEM graduates in Australia, more than 100,000 students graduates, and we have conducive environment for edtech startups and scale-ups, including the biggest hub in the Southern Hemisphere. New South Wales hosts more than 40% of Australia edtech companies, being about 240 plus companies. But today I will leave it to the experts to discuss the market opportunities for edtech in Vietnam. But as a New South Wales Trade and Investment Director in Vietnam, I'm here to assist New South Wales companies to enter Vietnam and to assist any Vietnamese company interested in investing, expanding, or locating or relocating to New South Wales to leverage the advantages that I mentioned earlier. And thank you everyone for joining today. And I wish everyone good health and the forum a good success. And hope to see you all in person soonest. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kien and Investment New South Wales again for sponsoring our great today event. So thanks to everyone who came up this stage to provide their aspiring speech. Now let's all enjoy a panel discussion with the topic, the future of edtech in Vietnam. EdTech is seen as the combinations between education and technology, referring to an area of technology devoted to the development and application of tools designed to facilitate education. I believe that we are all concerned about how the $3 billion value industry grow in the future, especially when the Vietnamese authority have promoted e-learning initiative, enabling parents and students to switch their attentions toward the online learning and digital resources after the COVID. This must be a great opportunity for the New South Wales edtech companies to expand their market and reach out more local Vietnamese partnerships to grow together. So this is an important topic, right? That is affecting many of our New South Wales edtech businesses. So we are honored to create this panel and welcome our guest speaker, Mr. Dong Anh Nguyen, Vice Dean of Faculties of International Communications at the Diplomatic Academies of Vietnam. Mr. Anh Duc Quan, Director of Atlas Asian Educational Research and Development Centers in Vietnam. And Mr. Nicola Jansky, CEO of Language Confidence. I'm so happy to be your moderator today. I should remind all of you that both attendees and live stream viewers that the events include a live question and answer sessions later. Please, if you have any questions, please put in the chat or in the Facebook comment sessions. We are happy to address them later on. Now, let's start the panel discussions by introducing a little bit about yourself and your roles in the Vietnam education edtech landscape. So from Mr. Dong Anh, and then Mr. Anduk, and then Mr. Nicholas. Okay, so I would like to welcome Mr. Dong An Nguyen for your introduction.
Thank you, Miss. Thank you, Miss Van Nguyen, and thank you, AVYLD, for inviting me. Thank you, the New South Wales government, for sponsoring this event. I think it's a very meaningful forum for us at this time. I mean, so my name is Nguyễn Dong An. I'm actually a lecturer and a vice dean at the Faculty of International Communication at the Diplomatic Academy of Vietnam. We are part of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs Vietnam. I think as a lecturer, my small, tiny contribution to the education landscape is that I try and I do provide education and training services to my students and working adults as well in media and communications, so that they can work in the media industry. And also for that, I think I am contributing parts in providing high quality human resources in Vietnam. Also as a media specialist, I think that I do by joining some TV show on TV in education programs. I do provide consultations, and I do work with education edtech company startups to consult them with the media opportunity and education opportunity in Vietnam. So that's a little bit of introduction about myself. Thank you.
So thank you, Mr. Dong An Nguyen. Now I would like to invite Mr. Anduk Huang to have few words.
Thank you, Ms. Wen, for your warmly welcome. And thank you, AVLD, as well as New South Wales Government for organizing this event. And hello, good morning and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Duc Huang. I'm the director of EdLab, Asia R&D Center in Vietnam. And our main job is doing academic research about teaching and learning and supporting teachers community across Vietnam through our social project about how to learn, how to teach, and how to design the curriculum. And besides, we also provide advice for educational managers and investors regarding their demand to transform and to grow their educational program and project. And it's my pleasure to join today's session to discuss the Vietnam education as well as the edtech landscape with all of us. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Anduk Huang. Now I would like to welcome Mr. Nicholas Chansky to have your words.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. My name is Nicholas Jenkins, and I'm the founder and CEO of Language Confidence. And we automate the teaching and testing of spoken English using artificial intelligence. So firstly, again, thank you to everyone for organizing this event. It's definitely a very exciting landscape, everything that's happening in Vietnam, and looking forward to a very long and prosperous relationship, as well as spending quite some time there myself throughout the coming years. So very much looking forward to it, and thanks again for organizing. So my background is I've lived in China for nearly 4 years. I've had a few education startups, education companies, and we've recently just closed just over $2 million in seed funding for Language Confidence. And we do have a few early customers, early adopters in the Vietnamese market, and have obviously been through the learning process there of adapting to doing business between Australia and Vietnam. So thank you again.
Thank you so much, Mr. Nicholas, and congratulations for successfully raised fund for your startup. So I would like to explore more about your story today. Okay, so let's on right into the first question for our panelists. So I have the questions for Mr. Dong An first. How has the Vietnam education and edtech industry developed over the last 5 years? What do you think?
Okay, so I think after 5 years of implementing the Sustainable Development Goal number 4, quality educations, Vietnam has reached some results. And I got this information when I attend a forum by the Ministry of Education. I'm going to provide you with some of the number that I have. I think after we started very low. I mean, we started with the renew process in 1986, which is only 30 years ago. And we achieved some good results because we are a developing country. So this is considered good result. I think that we are now in, for general education, which is primary, secondary, and high school, we are now at the top 40 countries in the world. And as for higher education, we are in the top 70. And for vocational training, I think we are at top 90 in the world. And according to the World Bank report in 2020, the Human Resource Index of Vietnam is now 38 amongst 38 in 174 countries, in which the education index is at number 15, which is equivalent to countries like the Netherlands, New Zealand, and Sweden, which is not very bad for a country, for developing country like Vietnam. And some of the number which is very promising, like for children at the age of 6 who are able to be to study in the primary, that number is 99%, and that is just behind Singapore only, which is a well-developed country in the world. And the number of students who finished their primary in 5 years is 92.08%, which is top in ASEAN as well. And in some of the report of the report in Southeast Asia show that Vietnamese students are among the tops in ASEAN for listening, for writing, and for mathematics. So I think that speaks some of the aspect of the Vietnamese education over the last 5 years. We have achieved a good result by implementing and trying to get quality education for everyone. As for my higher education aspect, I think that for the last 5 years, I have seen a lot of good changes. Firstly, the government, which is the Ministry of Education, has pushed all the university to meet certain standards to be able to recruit students. If we don't meet that standards, we cannot recruit students anymore. So over the last 5 years, all the universities, academies in Vietnam gone through like operation, you know. Before we didn't have that kind of check, but now it's checking every year, every 5 years, and every 2.5 years to show that whether we meet the standard or not. So first we need to meet the standard by the Ministry of Education in Vietnam in order to recruit students. And furthermore, we need to get quality certification from international organizations as well in the next few years. So I think that for a landscape that I am able to speak from top to bottom, from general education to higher educations, Vietnam has done well in the last 5 years, but there are still a lot of room for improvement. And in the edtech section, I think that we have seen a lot of startups. We have seen a lot of game changer. I think some of the big guy in education tech has provided good quality products for not just the student in Vietnam, but some of the products are being used all over the world as well. Some of the startup that I know, like Elsa, for example, it's made by a Vietnamese woman. You know, she worked at Google. I met her in Silicon Valley, but that's some of the thing that I am very proud of. I think that's a very good picture, great picture for the Vietnam education landscape. Thank you. That's for now. I might be able to add up later, but yeah.
Sure. Wow, really amazing informations and also the data. I believe the students and also institution of education provider already have done a great job. But I also would like to add some more point in terms of our Vietnamese government. So since 2008, our Vietnamese government has spent 15 to 20% of the public investment on education, and one of the highest level in the world, and only after Malaysia in the Southeast Asia region. So thanks to our government as well. Thanks, Mr. Dong Anh. Now I would like to have the questions for Mr. Anh Đức. So what is the Vietnam education and edtech opportunities, and how can the New South Wales businesses participate in it?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Wen, for your interesting questions. But I think that it's not easy to answer this question because the scope is too large. So in brief, I can say that the Vietnam education and edtech is a kind of a blooming garden with various types of flower and plants. So if you want to invest into Vietnamese education landscape, you need to understand the actual demand of each particular segment. Recently, we both experienced the impact of COVID-19 on education. Somehow, the pandemic has triggered school and government to work a faster digital transformation process in education. However, if we look at that, I think it's just a floating part of the iceberg. And I would like to say that there are two waves of digital transformation in Vietnamese education landscape. The first way is that people are talking about digital transformation in education. And the second wave is that people actually is doing, transforming in education using digital technology and approaches. And till this moment, I feel that the first way is still stronger than the second way. It means people talk about it a lot, but actually we are not doing it properly regarding our expectations. But however, if we just see the very up-to-date technology as a temporary alternative, we cannot get benefit from that, but we should consider educational technology as a long-term enhancement for both formal and non-formal education system. So rather than thinking that edtech is just a should do, we must consider edtech is a must do for every school and every family. And if we look at that, we might see several blind spots and blank spots to discover about the current landscape of Vietnam education. So for New South Wales investors who want to invest in Vietnam educations, I think that you should consider the differences between the public and private sector, because there's a huge gap in parents' willingness to pay across schools, public school and private school. And in addition, if you want to work with public school, you also need to understand more regulation and aspect about the operation mechanisms of the public school. And also, almost parents, regardless they're from public or private school, they're always looking for best educational solutions, which meet international quality and standard, and especially it must be customized to fit the demand of their own children, and including both education solution in school or out school. And in the old day, foreign investor, when they invest in Vietnam, they often focus in the English language program. But nowadays, even though if we just discuss about English language learning program, it's a huge demand and it's a huge market, but it's became more complicated. And you need to determine whenever you want to teach communication English, business English, academic English, or commercial English. You will provide a kind of one-size-fits-all program, or you will provide personalized and adaptive learning experience for the student. And for instance, there's more and more integrated program in which they just use English as a medium of teaching, but they teach science, they teach art and music classes, and also they provide the onboarding program for new graduate, reskilling and upskilling program for employee. And recently at the MIT University in Vietnam, they just launched a new master program in artificial intelligence and blockchain. And I think this is quite a proactive solution from MIT University because they quite understand the Vietnam market very well. So in brief, regarding the very big scope question, I'd like to give you a brief recommendation that besides understanding the segment and the demand, you also need to understand the local regulation, and you need to customize your product to adapt the demand as well as to adapt the regulation.
Yeah, thank you so much for your comprehensive answer. I pick up some point that from Mr. Anduk to ask Mr. Dong Ngan. He mentions that ethics is a must to have in both public sector and private sector, especially in the school. So you are the lecturer in the school. So what do you think about his comment, Mr. Dong Ngan? And how the education system in Vietnam can well adapt to the edtech and online learning system?
I think for edtechs, we are now not just a customer or not just a viewer. We are now a player, and we I think both private and public sectors need to compete. I'm really sorry, someone is knocking the door. Give me one. Sorry, that happened. That didn't happen in the rehearsal.
Yeah. Please go ahead. Yeah.
So I was a little bit distracted for that. Okay. Your question again. I think that in education techniques, we don't see any gap, or we don't see any differences between private and public sectors, because for tools like apps for the platform for education, it doesn't differentiate public or private. It's just people, student, teacher. So I think there is what I'm trying to say here, that we both be friends, but we are also now competitors based on that kind of new technology, the app, the platform, the education services are now all online, are now on the cloud everywhere. So there is, in this digital world, there is no difference. The only difference that we can make is that we try to create quality education on all the platform and all the tools. And I think Hoàng did mention that he is running a private company in education services. I am just a lecturer at the university, a public university in Vietnam, but we share some common things. We all looking at the future of education technology, which serve us both very well. Serve both the private and public, the teacher, the student, all of us. I think we all can benefit from this, but we also need to compete in this sector.
Yes, yeah. Thank you so much, Mr. Dong Ngan. I would like to add one more point that my friends in the fourth list, Ms. Lê Hoan Uyên Vi, she's the CEO of Do Ventures that has invested in edtech startup for many years. She said that the online learning markets of Vietnam push a huge potential with more than 23 million students, raising income from the middle class to one of the highest ratio of internet user in the world. And it also includes the key growth driver, include a high rate of the internet user. So can everyone guess how many percentage of the internet user in Vietnam? What do you think? Which number in your mind? The rate of the internet user in our market?
I think it'd be very high, right? 80+%.
Some people say that 90. Ms. Yang in the chat, she said 90%. Nicholas, can you guess how many percent?
It would have to be above 80%.
80%, great. Yeah. So Celine Dang, she said that 70 to 80. Wow, I believe that the audience here has a strong passion in edtech. So a lot of correct number. So the internet rates at about 70% of the country population, and our country population is nearly 100 million. So a huge market for Nicholas and also other New South Wales business to join in. Yeah, so now I would like to explore more about the story of Nicholas. Mr. Nicholas, I have a questions, kinds of personal questions. Had you ever been to Vietnam before you exported your product to Vietnam? Why from New South Wales to Vietnam?
No, I haven't actually been to Vietnam just yet. I was planning to spend about a month there at the end of, so about now actually. But I think recently at the start of the trip, there was actually a lockdown. I was planning to do India and Vietnam, but there was lockdown in both countries. So we decided to stay and do it later in the year. Vietnam is particularly exciting, and I draw a lot of parallels with my time in China. Obviously with the macro environment where there's a massive desire and demand for learning English, and at all different verticals within learning English. There is a very steep adoption of smartphones and internet technology and connectivity, and also a rising middle class and with an income to actually spend on education. One of the biggest differences I see between China and Vietnam from our perspective is originally when I was in China, it was in 2014, 2015 is when we first started there. And that was a lot of O2O, that was a lot of businesses that were just moving offline education to online education, so content and delivery, so tutors and textbooks, etc. Whereas with Vietnam, there's a lot more willingness to actually use technologies that improve and expedite the learning process, which is exactly where we lie. So our AI is able to listen to a student, pinpoint exactly where they're going wrong with pronunciation and fluency, and give feedback. And we offer this via an API. And we also have an automated English test, which is a standalone product. And so part of the reason is we're seeing a lot of, obviously the macro side of things. We also see a lot of interest in inbound leads that reach out to us and say, hey, look, we really love what you're doing. Can we buy a product? So we actually don't do any outbound sales at all. So we just see a lot of interest, and our two biggest markets are India and Vietnam. Vietnam, I think, there's a lot of similarities with culture. We have some Vietnamese members in our team as well. So we have a country manager and some developers, and it's always good fun. So there's a lot of parallels culturally as well. And it's very appealing from a business development point of view. So there's a lot of things moving in the right direction.
Yeah, thank you so much for loving Vietnam and choose Vietnam as the business destinations for your product. So can you clearly describe your path to market? How did you enter Vietnam?
Yeah, so we were very, very fortunate. So Kian, I'll give Kian a very big shout out here. So we started seeing some inbound leads from Vietnam. That was our first experience over the past 12 months. We really have. So last year we had a 500% growth in our company, and that's hence the round of funding. And a lot of that interest was from Vietnam in an inbound interest. But we were very fortunate to be connected with Kian, and would recommend, I'm sorry, Kian, you're going to get spammed here after this, I think. But would recommend anyone that is looking to do the same is to connect with Kian. We're very fortunate that he was able to help us with some customers as well. Also help us find a country head and a local Vietnamese member of our business that was able to advise us on everything from the tax laws to how to do business, to different aspects of culture, and all the different nuances of doing business there. So it was a very steep learning curve for us as well. But we were very fortunate between the inbound leads and the assistance from the Kian and the New South Wales Trade and Investment was a massive, massive help for us to really get started.
Yeah, I take some time to go into the website of the Investment New South Wales and find out that they have the programs called Going Global Export programs, which eligible New South Wales business can apply for free support to expand to the new international market. Did you apply one of those programs, or what kinds of specific support that you get?
We did attend one of those programs through Haymarket HQ. And it was through the team there that we were connected with Kian. So would definitely recommend. The programs are great. They're run by a team there. So Juco and the team, and they just give you the brief background of the one-on-one, how it all works. And then you can really get into the specifics of doing business there when you have a country manager and someone like Cam with the experience.
And after a certain time spending the business to Vietnam, do you find any difference between the user from Australia and Vietnam?
So we actually have very limited users in Australia ourselves. But in terms of operating and dealing with different cultures around the world, absolutely. So we have customers now in 5 continents. So all around the world, so there's always different ways of operating and different things you need to observe. And so there's a lot of learning, yeah, so everything is different. But in terms of the end user and the usage of our actual students, no, it's all the same, and it obviously grouped by different verticals within that English language learning market.
Seems like you got a lot of support from Investment New South Wales, but I believe that is quite hard and challenge for a foreign company to enter Vietnam market. So I would like to ask Mr. Anh Đức Hoang, broadly, what are some of the challenges for foreign businesses entering Vietnam education and edtech industry? What do you think?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Van. I see that, Nicholas, you are very lucky because you got a lot of support from the New South Wales investment, but for the other investors, they might not have those kind of support. They might see the opportunity everywhere in Vietnam, but they do not know where should be the best places for them to start with. So I think that the education landscape in Vietnam is like the big oceans. We will see that the ocean is very attractive, and we can see there's so many kinds of fishes. But the problem is that you need to determine what kind of fish you're going to hunt, and more important that you must know how to fish the fish you want to fish. And regarding the first question of how to determine which kind of fish, I think that at this moment, the foreign investor must pay a lot of attention to market research activities, because currently most of the data about the education market in terms of a market is not up to date in Vietnam. For instance, you can find on the internet that 100% of schools in Vietnam, they have the access to the internet, but however, the problem is how strong is the connection. How many modems for each class, or at the school there's only one access point, so the school administrator and managers, they can perform just the administrative tasks, and it's not possible for them to perform teaching and learning through the internet. Yeah. So till this moment, there's many kind of data like that. There's not up to date. So if you invest in Vietnam, there might be a chance that you will invest a sound like promising opportunity, but actually it's just wasting time and effort for both parties if you do not pay much attention to the market research and you do not determine the particular opportunity you want to do. And regarding the second questions I just mentioned about how should we fish, and I think that in brief, so many investors, they consider Vietnam is a kind of outsourcing center. So if an investor just consider that mindset within their mind, there's nothing for you to worry. Because Vietnam can be a kind of alternative solutions, and you can come to Vietnam, you have a lower salary and you can still maintain the quality of your product. So there's no problem if you maintain that mindset. But I think that if any company or if any solution can conquer the Vietnamese edtech market, they will have many competitive advantages to go global. Because we have a lot of problems within our education system regarding both formal and informal. And if you can solve those problems, you will be very confident to go anywhere. So if you really want to consider Vietnam is kind of a hub, and you invest in R&D activity in Vietnam, and then you will spin off across the world, I think that would be very interesting. So currently, I see that for an investor, they just have some kind of sales representative or some kind of technology developer in Vietnam. And I would like to suggest that you might consider to hire several local educational experts to work for you. Maybe they will work as a kind of your in-house R&D team or is a kind of part-time advisor. But in either way, they will help you to really understand the portrait of Vietnamese learner, and you can understand and you can optimize your product or your solution. And that could be, I think, the best investment to your product before you can conquer the Vietnamese market, as well as before you will optimize your product and you go to conquer the other country across the world.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Anh Đức. I love your statements, which fish you want to hunt and how to hunt that fish. And I totally agree that problems come with opportunities, right? Showing the problems, you can get the more opportunity than other competitors. And you also mentioned about regulations. I also agree that regulations are the key to operate and go to market that business should know. So Nicholas, did you face any challenge or any things that I think you think the support may need enhanced to show the problems? So any challenges when entering Vietnamese market?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. The first and foremost was not so much a language barrier, but a conveying meaning, especially when you're negotiating complex structures or complex technical documents or trying to work with other developers with your engineering team. There's definitely sometimes things are lost in translation. So that was the first challenge we had to overcome. There's also some regulations in Vietnam with regards to business and exporting cash, where there's actually a tax on that. So you have to rethink the pricing, restructure with the customer, really work with them. All the contracts we have to do in bilingual contracts. We also, I mean, for now, we obviously work remotely, and all of our customers are signing e-signature. We had to do wet signatures and actually ship the wet signature copy of the contracts to our customers once we had it co-signed. So there's a bit of bouncing around of contracts with couriers. So things like that, where you just have to learn how to operate and the different nuances of working in Vietnam. Once you've learned the lessons and you figured it out, it is, it's just a process, same as anywhere else.
Yeah, so just for your information that our product, Osla.io, is the top 2 of the EdTechs in the TechFest Vietnam 2021, and also the winner of the Seeded Growth, the program sponsored by the Australian government. So it's a good it's a good representative for you in Vietnam if you need an HR on a local expert. Okay, Nicholas. But here, Mr. Anh Đức is also the expert. He's the director of Atlas Asia. As I know, Mr. Anh Đức, your work, you work with the government body and international local NGO. So your work focus on sustainable education policy development and effective school management practice. So do you have any idea that we on together, at least in the panel, can support New South Wales business like Nicholas to cooperate and also support each other? Any idea?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Van. Recently, we also have the project about global digital transformation in Global South, including the participants from a lot of countries from South America as well as from South Asia. And there's one common thing I realize that if any business you want to introduce any kind of new solution, it's very difficult for you to persuade the public audience that your product is good. So before introduce your solution, I think that any business and product, you need to think about the communities. So what is the problem, the most important problem the local community is facing? Because the school in urban area and in the suburban area are very different. So we need to think about the problem, and we need to go ahead and give a hand to support their community to solve their problem. And after a while, they can see that we also share the same mission of serving the local community, and your reputations might be increased a little bit. And after that moment, there might be chance for you to go to the heart of the local people. So rather than just investing money in, for instance, digital advertising campaign, you can think more about CSR program to support the local community. I think it's a most sustainable way to engage with the local.
Yeah, thank you so much, anh Đức. And Mr. Dong Anh, do you have any idea to support business like Nicholas as a very famous KOL in terms of the lecturer and also the TV on the TV program that you join? Sorry, you are, yeah.
Sure. If I can add one thing, I think that the New South Wales business should also have a media presence in Vietnam as well. It's quite important because in the Vietnamese culture, if we can do that well, then we will have a lot of customers. I mean, not just in Vietnam and everywhere in the world. If the business is known to the people, then the people will have will actually maybe use the service. But especially in Vietnam, when we are very when we are very we take that very seriously. Like, for example, because the media ecosystem in Vietnam works like someone who introduced good business, who show people what is good and what is not, based on our culture. So I think that maybe besides investing in the core business, the core values, maybe have more presence in the media landscape as well.
Yeah.
For that, yeah, we can all help in certain way.
Thank you so much, Mr. Dong Anh. So everyone, to wrap up, how could you describe the opportunities of Vietnam in education and edtech? Mr. Anh Đức Hoang, I know that you have to leave at 11 a.m. So can you answer the opportunities of Vietnam in one sentence?
Yes, in one sentence, I think that's every investor, you can consider both the formal education and informal education. And currently there's the emerging trend of investing in formal education activities regarding different ages, from high school students to university, as well as to fresh graduate.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Anh Đức Hoang, for joining us today. And Mr. Dong Anh, one sentence about opportunities of our country, Vietnam. What would you say?
Just one sentence. That is very difficult.
One sentence. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I will make a long one sentence then. I think if we speak about the future, there are many uncertainties, but one thing for sure, education is the key to everything. In our hard time in the world, the Vietnamese people invest everything, the best they can, in their children education. So I think that's not going to change anytime soon. To exit poverty, to be wealthy, education is the key. So it's a key for sustainable development. And I think that in this digital transformation world nowadays, EdTech is a shortcut to achieve that sustainable quality education. And that's it.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to add one more point, that Vietnamese parents, like my case, I am the mother of the 6-year-old girl. We are spending 30% of the general family on the Vietnamese families, spending 30% of their income for their children educations, and that number will be increased sharply in the future. Yeah. So before Mr. Anh Đức Hoang leave, there is just prompt questions from the audience for you. Mr. Anh Đức Hoang, can you tell more about the informal education in Vietnam that you just recently mentioned? What is it consisted of? From Ms. Celinda.
Yes, thank you, Celine, for your questions. Regarding the K-12 education, you can see that there's extracurricular activities. There are also the extracurricular activities within school and outside of school. So there are a lot of activities for the student they can do, as well as there's educational activity in which parents can do at home for their children. So that is some example about informal education at the school level. At the university level, there's also experimental program for university students, so they can gain more experience about different countries, about different technologies and new tools, new solutions for their future career. And regarding the regarding the workplace environment, there also reskill or upskill program for employees who have been work for the companies for several years, but maybe they need to improve their capability to meet the new demand of the company. So that is several examples of the informal education I just mentioned, and hope that it can help.
Yeah. Thank you for your clarifications. It's unclear now, I hope. So the audience sent a lot of questions. Even before I introduce the question and answer sessions, that is a very good news. So Mr. Underkwan, Mr. Underkwan, you can leave if you you need to. Yeah. And Mr. Dong An, we have the questions from Mr. Philip Love. How do we separate short-term adoptions due to COVID versus long-term change? Short-term and long-term adoption. So what we have to do in short-term and the long-term strategy to adopt with the COVID.
Okay. I might not be able to answer this question fully, or maybe up to your standard, but I'll try my best. So I think COVID is a bad thing for sure. It's a pandemic, and we are now still suffering. My children are not able to go to school still after 2 years of this pandemic. It's a bad thing for sure. But in terms of development and technology, I think that it's also a push for the companies, schools, universities to transform into digital with a in a faster speed. So I think that for short term, we will as in education, as educators, we might suffer some losses in business investment, like for some school which cannot operate or function at their 100%, for government struggling from getting children to schools. That is very that's the difficulties, but it is only in short terms. For long terms, I think there are more opportunities because of this pandemic. So we were able to push for, on the cloud services like edtech apps. We moved to the internet, and we still study. We still learn very well. My children still get to the next level. I mean, they still have class on the iPad every day. And I think that for a long term, that would be an opportunity for all of us to push for sustainable quality educations. It does not need to have a very big schools or classroom, but we can still study and we can still benefit. We can still get knowledge. Just that after COVID, I think we will need to practice the part where we need skills, like real life skills for students, for educators, communication skills. So I think that in my opinion, it's if we can cope these short-term difficulties, then we can surely develop, we can surely achieve success in the long term.
Yes,
that might be something that.
Yeah, Sure, I do agree with you. Thank you. So I would like to invite Mr. Kien Van Nguyen, Investment New South Wales, Trade and Investment Directors of Vietnam, to join our panelists to answer the question from the audience. But to follow with that questions, Nicholas, can I ask you, do you really have the short-term plans or long-term plans, or just combine those together to cope with the COVID?
Yeah, look, I think I have to echo those statements a lot. I think, I mean, obviously the pandemic has been a real taint on the world for 2 years now, almost to the day, I think. But from an education point of view, particularly where face-to-face teaching was ruled out, it did accelerate a lot of industry, particularly moving to offline to online learning. So both parents are educators. My mother's a primary school teacher, has been for nearly 40 years. My father was a university professor, and I know in my mother's class, she took everything online. So I definitely think it is a longer term effect. So I think you're seeing this with here in Australia, here in Sydney, that almost every workplace is a mix of work from home and work from the office. And I think it will be the same moving in the future, where people got used to using technology and accept technology a lot more, that not just in an offline to online sense, but in a accepting of technology to actually automate and improve some of their learning experiences. So it's definitely a long-term thing for us. The Vietnamese market for us is definitely a long-term market. I mean, education, online ed tech, and English education particularly is obviously a massive market. So everything points in the right direction for a long-term play for sure.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Nicholas. I have the questions from the audience. Ms. Hương Nguyễn, she asked, which segment, K-12, uni, VAT, etc., is the biggest for EdTech? So I would like to ask Mr. Kien, as you have been working for the New South Wales investment for a long time, can you tell us and share with us that among a lot of EdTech company in New South Wales, which segments most EdTech company focus on from New South Wales, K-12, uni, or VAT?
Thank you, Van. Thank you, Hương, for the question. I think we in New South Wales, we cover a wide range of technology in terms of EdTech, from education, higher education, schools to uni to VET, etc. And from curriculum to extracurriculum technology. We have a wide range of that, and as I said, we have over 240 plus companies in EdTech. So you name it. But opportunity in Vietnam, as I can see, also from previous question about whether or not this pandemic is a short-term surge, or is it a long-term transformation? So let me go back to a bit to the government's government of Vietnam's policy and strategic direction. They want to have a digital transformation in all sectors, including the education. However, from strategic policy to implementation, it requires a lot of patience. Again, it's a lot of patience in terms of change, because change is always face resistance, because it's always easier to do the old ways. There are some vested interest among those who make decisions, and also there are costs and capex involved upfront. So it's difficult to change at the beginning, but gradually there will be the opening up for the EdTech companies from New South Wales to Vietnam in all sorts of things. So if there is a pain point in the education system, whether or not it is in the mainstream, like the government's curriculum, or is it just an extra curriculum? I know that there's one company in New South Wales just focus on the technology that helps the teachers to manage risks when they go on a vacation. So very tiny things, but very helpful. So those are the things that I can flag, that New South Wales have a wide range of technologies that can fit in well with the needs and the demands of Vietnam. But again, it requires some patience when you work with Vietnamese partners. And Nick was just saying it takes some time. It takes some understanding of how it works in the market. So we are here to facilitate that process.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Mr. Kien. Yeah. So yes. So the newspaper Tech in Asia, normally they do the landscape overview of the current edtech company. And from my experience, most edtech company in Vietnam featured on that newspaper was K-12. So I believe that we need more edtech company in other sector, because Vietnamese market is a huge market and very potential. Just add one more point to that question. I also received others question coming for Nick. Andrea asked that if I am a business based in New South Wales and want to understand and export to a market like Vietnam, what are my next steps? Yes, Nick.
Yeah, thank you for the question. So there's a few steps that you can take. The first most basic one and easiest to access is Googling. Googling, trying to understand the market, looking at market trends, business culture. That's really the first step that we took. The other one is obviously attending events and forums such as this and engaging with. I think my experience is very limited, but I'm happy to share what I have learned. But also engaging with someone like Kian from New South Wales Investment. I think that's definitely a great way to go. The other ways that I can recommend, and from having lived in Singapore, Malaysia, China, is get on the ground and get yourself over to the market, network, meet, learn. That's the best way definitely to do it. And also hire a team and a country head to really work with you in learning about the market and positioning your business or your products or your messaging, at least in the right way for those markets.
So you mentioned earlier that Mr. Kian support you a lot when you start the journey to Vietnam. So how can you contact and get to know Mr. Kian?
I don't know. You have to ask Kian. I think. What's the best way, Kian?
Yes. What would be the best way to contact you, Mr. Kian, or Investment New South Wales?
After this event, you can pop my email in there, but you can always contact the team back in New South Wales. You go to Investment New South Wales website, you always find the one-stop shop. You can just check that, and then they will relay the request to me where relevant.
Yeah, thank you. So organizer, please put up on this slide the contact details of the panelists, so that audience can contact easier. And Mr. Dong Ngan, we have the questions from the audience for you. What are the current regulatory frameworks that you think will push more activity in this space? And how difficult is it for Australian business to export to a market like Vietnam? So any current framework can push more activity in this space?
Framework, I think that from what I know, our government is trying to get as much foreign investor as possible, especially in these difficult times of the pandemic. We need more investment we need more money into our economy. And I think the government and the central government and actually local government will try, are trying their best to create different frameworks for foreign investor. It has been great times over the last 20 years for foreign investor to come to Vietnam. We have a big market and we have a big welcome as well. We have low tax for foreign investor, and then we have cheap labor. That is changing a little bit. Now our labor is not that cheap. Our economy is rising, and the government is trying to be more creative to create different frameworks for foreign investor, because we need that. And as for foreign investor like like Australia, we are now strategic partners, right? And as for the New South Wales government, which is already present in Vietnam, I think that we are not just trying to invite everyone, but we are trying to create different frameworks to keep you here with us, because you were here when we are less developed, when we have many difficulties, but you are friends and we come to invest in our country. And I think that beside the framework to attract foreign investor, I think we need frameworks to keep those who are here, stay here for a long period of time. And I think that for our government to understand fully about what you need, we need this kind of forum, and we need like what I mean earlier, media presence, show how difficult or how you might need different policy to be changed, to be adjusted to meet your requirements to stay here, fight the government and the foreign investors as well. That be something. And the second question, I'm sorry, can you repeat the second question?
The second question would be, how difficult do you think it's too difficult, or how difficult is it for Australian business to export to a market like Vietnam?
Okay, in my opinion, one of the biggest challenges for Australian investor in Vietnam nowadays is that you have a lot of competitors. Because our economy is rising, because our GDP is getting higher, our market is getting bigger, then we have a lot of other countries, a lot of other players going to Vietnam to do business, like the UK universities, just in education alone, the UK players, Europe, US, I think they are all big players in terms of education. They have quality product as well. So I think one of the most difficult and challenge for Australian business in Vietnam is that they are now having more competitors. And also because there is no gap between, there is little gap nowadays between Vietnamese startups. Is actually good company. You know, there are Vietnamese guys coming home from after 10, 20 years working overseas, like in US and Silicon Valley. They bring home the money and the experience and the connection as well. They come home, they create good products. So I think not just foreign players, also domestically we have competitor in Vietnam as well. And for that, I think it's one of the challenges for the Australian business who are doing business in Vietnam.
Yeah, Thank you so much. But I still see a lot of opportunities. We are in the top 20 of the TechFest Vietnam last year. So that TechFest Vietnam was programs conducted by the Vietnamese government to see how the government focused on promoting the EdTech communities in general. And also we also have Shark Tank Vietnam on the VTV, which is the national television channel, in order to promote the your product and also your startup. So a lot of opportunities go along with the competition. I already see,
and then you have AVLD as well. Sorry to interrupt, but then you have AVLD as well.
Yes,
to connect
AVLD as well.
sure. Australian business to the Vietnamese people.
Yeah, sure. And I saw the contact that organizer already put in the task, and also Mr. Ken already put his contact as well. So if anyone wants to get contact with us, please look into the task. Contact with us, please. It's nearly the end of our today programs. So ladies and gentlemen, if you still have any questions, feel free to put in the chat board or send the email for us. So we will try to answer all of your concerns. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come now to the end of our today's seminar. I'm certain that everyone is satisfied with the learning to gain from this today programs. On behalf of the Vietnam Leadership Dialogue, I would like to thank to Investment New South Wales for your great support of the event. And again, thank you Consultant Vietnam, Dr. Hang, for your time and your remark at the beginning. So well, ladies and gentlemen, that wraps up our great morning. Thanks for all to make times in your busy schedule to join us here this morning. So the organizer, please change to the next slide. So we hope to see all of you next time at the event, The Future of E-Commerce in Vietnam, will happen on the 5th of April at 10 a.m. Vietnam times or 1 p.m. Sydney times. Please don't forget to scan the QR code here to register. So I would like again to wish you all a pleasant day and take care and goodbye. There is a question sent in to me that where can we get the recording of the event? So I believe that this event already features on our Facebook page. So you can see the live stream record on our page. Thank you so much, Mr. Nguyen, for your questions. Yeah, so I believe that we all have good times, and good luck, and see you on together on the 5th of April for our next event. Thank you.